The most surprising thing about Shedeur Sanders' first public remarks wasn't what he said, it was what he believed. Speaking with the weight of months behind closed doors, Sanders broke his silence with an unmistakable clarity. He's not rushing anything. Not because he's uncertain, but because he's certain of one thing: God's timing. In an NFL culture where players chase instant validation, Sanders offers a direct counter-narrative. He doesn't need the spotlight to prove he's ready. His words, grounded in spiritual trust rather than competitive ego, reshape the conversation around his journey with the Browns.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's easy to look at a struggling franchise and blame coaching, strategy, or bad luck. But Sanders' approach challenges deeper assumptions. This isn't about impatience, it's about misplaced priorities. While the Browns scramble for answers through Dillon Gabriel's rotation or sideline decisions involving Reggie Sanders, Shedeur stands still, focused, intentional, spiritually anchored. His journey isn't built on noise, but alignment. And when his time comes, it won't be about a breakout, it'll be about fulfillment. The NFL thrives on drama, but this wasn't noise. This was deliberate. After weeks, months of silence, Shedeur Sanders finally addressed the elephant in the locker room, the Cleveland Browns. And just like that, the calmest voice in the room became the loudest. With one statement, Sanders didn't just speak, he cut through the chaos, exposing the dysfunction without ever raising his voice. And that's the power of what he said. It wasn't a meltdown. It wasn't a rant. It was a shift. What Sanders laid bare was more than his frustration. It was a full-on read of a franchise that's been spinning in place for years. He didn't have to name names or throw tantrums. All it took was a measured truth. The Browns are moving in chaos. He is not. This is the first time Sanders has broken his silence since entering the Browns' orbit. And he didn't come out swinging. He came out focused. His words revealed more than tension. They revealed a philosophy, a mindset that doesn't conform to NFL culture, a belief that patience, faith, and spiritual strength are more powerful than panic, impulse, or noise. While Cleveland fumbles through its identity crisis, cycling quarterbacks, flipping playbooks, and clinging to short-term fixes, Sanders is standing still on purpose. And that stillness? It's not passive. It's preparation. Let's not forget, this team is infamous for quarterback roulette. 1 minute, the guy under center is the future, and the next he's traded, injured, or benched. Dillon Gabriel is currently in the spotlight, but no one's pretending the Browns are building long-term with confidence. They're managing symptoms, not solving anything. And in the middle of all that noise, Shedeur Sanders unfazed, watching it unfold like clockwork. His recent remarks were a strategic unveiling. He didn't speak to stir up drama. He spoke to set a boundary. And he did it with spiritual clarity that caught the league off guard. Because, let's be honest, the NFL doesn't reward patience. It rewards volume. Star players are expected to be loud, dramatic, animated. But Sanders is breaking that mold entirely. His demeanor is patient, spiritual, composed. It's everything Cleveland hasn't been. And that's exactly what makes him dangerous. This isn't about ego or optics. It's about vision. Sanders is playing the long game. He's not wasting energy begging for reps or posting cryptic messages. He's trusting God's timing, preparing in silence, and letting the franchise implode on its own. He knows chaos is loud, but legacy? Legacy is built in silence. The contrast between Sanders and the Browns could not be sharper. You've got a young quarterback who prays, studies, and waits, not because he's unsure, but because he knows he doesn't need to rush. Every decision he makes comes from a place of divine trust, not desperation. Meanwhile, the team that drafted him is chasing Band-Aid solutions like it's a tradition. And yet, instead of blaming them, he reframes it. Instead of criticizing leadership directly, he brings it back to faith. Instead of complaining about missed opportunities, he talks about timing. That's not just maturity. That's strategy. The deeper layer here? It's about control. Not control over the franchise, but control over self. Shedeur Sanders isn't being molded by Cleveland's chaos. He's holding his shape. Unbothered. Aligned. He's rejecting the NFL's high-speed pressure and replacing it with something radically different. Spiritual discipline. Because while the Browns act out of fear of failure, fear of scrutiny, fear of letting go, Sanders operates from purpose. That's a completely different source of power. And whether the team sees it or not, that power is building. He doesn't need to prove anything right now. He's building in private, under pressure, with faith that when the time comes, it won't just be a debut. It'll be a turning point. That's the thing about Sanders. He's not here to ride the wave. He's here to change the tide. The Browns, on the other hand, seem trapped in reactive leadership. Their choice to ride with Dillon Gabriel, while refusing to fully invest in Sanders, is more about avoiding risk than embracing vision. They want quick wins, not sustainable growth. But Sanders isn't wired for shortcuts. He's wired for legacy. And legacies take time. He's not the loudest guy in the room. He's the most intentional. Every part of his journey, every delay, every setback, is part of a bigger strategy. He's not waiting to be handed the spotlight. He's preparing to be ready when it shines. And when it does, it's not going to look like luck. It's going to look like alignment. Because that's the difference. Some quarterbacks need perfect conditions to thrive. Shedeur Sanders is being shaped in imperfection, developed inside dysfunction, and still holding his ground. There's a specific kind of strength it takes to stay silent when you know you should be the one leading. There's a deeper confidence in letting your game speak later, instead of demanding to be heard now. And when Sanders finally steps onto that field, it won't be loud. It'll be clear. A controlled takeover. A product of faith, focus, and divine patience. This isn't a comeback story. It's a story of control. Of a young quarterback choosing not to be pulled into Cleveland's emotional whiplash. Of someone opting out of the chaos model that's dominated the Browns for years. And here's where it gets really real. The Browns' dysfunction isn't just a backdrop, it's the reason this story matters. Their inability to commit to long-term development is exactly why Shedeur's response hit so hard. He's everything they're not. Strategic, grounded, still. While the franchise reacts, he reflects. While they search for answers, he stays quiet, because he already knows his. And when that moment comes, the moment when Cleveland has no more answers, no more tricks, no more quarterbacks to cycle through, guess who's going to be ready? Not just physically, spiritually, mentally, wholly. He's not preparing for a game. He's preparing for a shift. And when that shift happens, the narrative won't be he finally got his shot. It'll be, he was the answer the whole time. So the question becomes, how long will Cleveland keep missing what's right in front of them? And how long can a player like Sanders sit quietly while a franchise buries itself in its own mess? Because patience is powerful, but it's not infinite. One way or another, Shedeur's moment is coming. And when it does, no one will be talking about the Browns' decisions. They'll be talking about his. The choice to stay grounded. The choice to wait. The choice to let faith guide him where ego would have failed. It's not just a strategy. It's a calling. If you see what Shedeur Sanders is doing, if you get the bigger picture behind his silence, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are the Browns blind to what they have? Or is this all building towards something bigger? And make sure you're subscribed. Because when that moment hits, when Sanders takes the field, you're going to want a front row seat. By now, the pattern is unmistakable. Cleveland spirals. Shedeur waits. The Browns churn through quarterbacks like they're flipping through channels. Never settling, always searching. Always convinced the next one might finally stick. But what they don't seem to realize is that while they've been scrambling for the answer has been quietly sitting right there, watching, studying, praying, waiting. And now that Shedeur Sanders has finally broken his silence, it's clear he wasn't just waiting. He was listening. To the noise. To the chaos. To the disorganized hum of a franchise that can't stop tripping over its own insecurities. And then, with calm precision, he responded, not with fire, not with fury, but with faith. Faith in timing. Faith in God. Faith in the fact that when the moment is right, nothing can stop it. That contrast, the spiritual patience of Sanders versus the emotional volatility of the Browns, couldn't be starker. It's a cultural collision. The NFL has always rewarded intensity, speed, and bravado. And yet here's Shedeur, intentionally slowing everything down. He's moving with purpose, not panic. He's unshaken, while the franchise continues to flail. And the wildest part? He never had to say anything for people to feel that energy. But now he has spoken. And what he said wasn't just a critique, it was a correction. There was no drama in his voice, no hint of anger. Just calm truth. He sees the dysfunction. He knows what's happening behind the scenes. The revolving door mentality. The lack of developmental structure. The fear-based leadership. All of it. And still he's not pressing. Because he understands something that a lot of these organizations don't. Greatness takes time. But this league doesn't want time. It wants results. Now. Today. This quarter. It wants emotion over process. Hype over discipline. And, in that environment, Shedeur's entire existence becomes a challenge to the system. Let's call it what it is. He's not just sitting back because he has to. He's choosing to. That's what makes this so rare. So dangerous. So powerful. He's not fighting the storm. He isn't even in it. He's standing outside of it, waiting for the right moment to walk through it untouched. That's spiritual power. And the NFL isn't ready for it. Cleveland certainly isn't. You'd think a franchise with this much chaos under its belt would be looking for someone like him. Someone who doesn't need to be managed with drama, who doesn't fold under pressure, who doesn't turn every delay into a crisis. But instead, they're busy overthinking their next move, while Shedeur quietly becomes the most stable piece on the board. And that silence? That was always the strategy. Let the dysfunction reveal itself. Let the system eat itself alive. Let them run out of quarterbacks, out of excuses, out of time. Then walk in, prepared, disciplined, spiritually locked in. And let the game speak. That's the real power of what Sanders is doing. He's not rejecting the system. He's letting the system reject itself. So that when he steps in, everything changes. And make no mistake, change is coming. This isn't about Shedeur being flashy. It's about Shedeur being ready. That's the part people are finally starting to understand. He's not just the next guy up. He's the guy who never needed to shout because he already knew who he was. He wasn't waiting to be discovered. He was preparing to deliver. That kind of internal confidence? That's rare. Especially in a league that thrives on hot takes and headline-grabbing reactions. But Sanders doesn't care about any of that. He's not chasing the camera. He's chasing alignment, with purpose, with faith, with timing. And now that the Browns have hit yet another wall, the pressure's shifting. It's not on Shedeur to prove himself. It's on Cleveland to recognize what they've been sitting on. A quarterback who understands the value of delayed gratification. A leader who knows how to weather storms without making them worse. A player who sees the long game in a league obsessed with the scoreboard. There's a weight to the way Sanders carries himself. Not just the discipline, but the restraint, the trust. That's the mark of someone who's not just trying to win games. He's trying to build something bigger. Legacy, culture, transformation. The kind that doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, you feel it. And it's coming. Because eventually, the Browns will have to make a decision. Not based on hype, but on stability. Not based on who's loudest, but on who's ready. And when that day comes, the story won't be about his debut. It'll be about everything he did before it. Everything that led up to that moment of breakthrough. The patience, the prayer, the silence. Every rep he took in practice. Every headline he ignored. Every time he chose faith over frustration. All of it will come together in one of those moments that the league loves to call overnight success, when really it was years in the making. And for Cleveland, it could be redemption. But only if they stop repeating the same cycle of instability. Only if they stop treating quarterbacks like disposable tools and start treating them like foundations. Only if they stop defaulting to panic and start investing in process. Sanders is showing them what that looks like. He's already leading, even without the title, even without the snaps. And that's the part they haven't figured out yet. He's already the culture shift they need. They just haven't activated it. But the more this chaos continues, the more obvious it becomes. The more the fans start asking why the most composed guy on the roster isn't the one leading the huddle. The more the league starts to notice that Shedeur isn't a question mark. He's an exclamation point, waiting to be unleashed. And if the Browns don't make that move, someone else will. That's the risk. Because while Cleveland fumbles through development, other teams are watching. And Shedeur's calm, poised, faith-driven demeanor? That's exactly the kind of leadership any franchise would kill to have in the locker room. If the Browns wait too long, they're not just risking another failed season. They're risking their future. All because they couldn't recognize greatness when it wasn't screaming for attention. And that's the irony. Shedeur's greatest strength, his ability to lead without ego, to wait without resentment, to trust without wavering, is the very thing that makes him so easy to overlook in a league addicted to chaos. But that's about to change. Because you can only deny preparation for so long. You can only run from purpose for so long. Eventually, the Browns are going to look around and realize the only thing stable, the only thing composed, the only thing ready, is the guy they've been ignoring. And at that point, Shedeur Sanders won't need to say a word. He'll let the game speak. He'll let the discipline speak. He'll let the years of quiet work, spiritual alignment, and mental strength pour out in 4 quarters of football that reframe everything. That moment will come. And when it does, it won't be a surprise. It'll be inevitable. A franchise teetering on the edge. A quarterback composed in the fire. A silence broken not with a bang, but with a message so direct, so controlled. It shook the entire conversation surrounding the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders didn't step forward with drama. He stepped forward with truth. And that's what made it hit so hard. Because when you strip away the headlines, the noise, the excuses, what's left is one undeniable fact. He gets it. He understands the dysfunction, the internal chaos, the quarterback shuffle, the impulsive decision-making. And he also understands that responding with fire only adds to the smoke. That's what separates Shedeur Sanders from just another talented rookie hoping for a shot. He's not waiting for opportunity. He's preparing for destiny. And he made it clear. His faith is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not a backup plan. His faith is the framework, the strategy, the reason he's still standing with his head up while the franchise moves like it's chasing its own tail. The Browns have become the NFL's cautionary tale. Every year it's the same song, new quarterback, new promise, new disappointment. But this year, the twist is different. This year, the one person not contributing to the noise, the one person staying calm, intentional, focused, is also the one person who could finally break the cycle. That's the part that stings. Shedeur Sanders doesn't fit the Browns' usual narrative. He's not the scrambling fix. He's not the big personality who rallies fans for 6 games then fades. He's not the emotional wild card that needs to be micromanaged. He's a leader, a foundational piece, a system reset kind of player. But because he's quiet, because he's steady, because he's spiritual instead of loud, they don't know what to do with him. And that hesitation, that reluctance to deviate from chaos, that's exactly what he called out when he finally spoke. Not directly, not emotionally, but clearly. He said enough. Enough of the frantic quarterback strategy. Enough of the reactive play calling. Enough of the organizational indecision disguised as development. Enough of a culture that rewards drama and ignores discipline. And what made it all so cutting was that he didn't have to insult anyone. His words reflected the Browns back at themselves. And it wasn't a good look. Because in a room full of noise, the person with the quietest voice often makes the most sense. And Shedeur's voice? It was surgical. Every word felt like a read. Not just on the team, on the league, on the entire culture of how talent is treated, how faith is dismissed, how patience is overlooked. And here's where it gets even more real. Sanders isn't just giving us a lesson in self-control. He's redefining what leadership looks like in professional football. He's proving that you don't need to yell to command respect, that you don't need to throw tantrums to show frustration, that sometimes saying less is the most powerful move you can make. Because while the Browns gamble with quarterbacks like it's a fantasy draft, Sanders is building a foundation, one prayer, one rep, one silent moment at a time. He's not rattled. He's resolved. And that kind of leadership, it doesn't come from talent. It comes from character. That's what should scare every front office exec still brushing him off as not ready. Because this level of composure, it is readiness. This level of spiritual grounding, that's the foundation championships are built on. And Cleveland's biggest failure right now isn't that they've chosen someone else. It's that they're ignoring someone who already is. Already capable. Already grounded. Already thinking beyond stats and headlines. While the Browns continue to feed chaos, Sanders has chosen clarity. While they draft band-aids, he's choosing longevity. While they flip through schemes, he's internalizing strategy. So when the day comes, and it will, when the decision finally shifts, and Shedeur takes the field, he won't have to prove anything. He won't need to play angry or show them. He'll just do the job, with the same discipline, with the same calm, with the same internal compass that's been guiding him since day one. And here's the part that the Browns might not be ready for. When he steps in, he's not just going to win games. He's going to expose what they've lacked this whole time. Vision, patience, stability. And it's going to be obvious, painfully obvious. Because nothing exposes dysfunction like the presence of real order. And nothing looks more chaotic than a franchise scrambling while their most composed asset has been sitting on the bench, quietly building a playbook for change. That's what Shedeur Sanders represents. Change. Not the kind that gets announced at press conferences. The kind that moves slowly, deliberately, faithfully. The kind that starts internally and shows up when it's needed most. He's not reacting to the Browns' drama. He's outlasting it. Because legacy doesn't start on draft day. It starts the moment you decide who you're going to be, before anyone gives you the green light. And right now, Shedeur is showing exactly who he is. Composed, confident, unshakable. And the Browns? They're running out of places to hide. The team can only pretend things are fine for so long before the numbers don't lie. The locker room gets restless. And the fans start chanting for the player who's been sitting quietly, watching, waiting, believing. By the time he steps onto that field, the question won't be, is he ready? It'll be, why didn't they do this sooner? That moment is coming. The silence is broken. The energy has shifted. And whether Cleveland embraces it or not, Shedeur Sanders is positioned to not just lead a team, but redefine what leadership even looks like in this league. So if you've been watching this unfold, if you've been seeing through the noise, let's talk about it. Do you think Shedeur should be the Browns starter? Has the organization been blind to what's right in front of them? Or is this all part of the timing he's trusted from day one? Drop your take in the comments. Hit that like if you respect the quiet grind. And subscribe if you're ready to see what happens when preparation, faith, and perfect timing collide on the biggest stage in football.